We need to see the Taliban step up and permit an evacuation of those who want to leave. And that is what we are expecting of them. And that, quite frankly, is part of the statement that Canada and many other countries released last night.
Stepping up, Sheila, stepping up in the framework of the Taliban is for the months and years ahead, now that they are so emboldened and there are growing numbers and there are people from all over the world with like-minded terrorism ideals coming to Afghanistan now to be part of the party. Stepping up for them means plotting future 9/11s, not about having an inclusive government. I mean, what is the Prime Minister thinking? And here, Sheila, is the exclamation on this fiasco. Let's go to some video of Mr. Garneau and see what he has to say in terms of the new boss in town, namely the terrorist organization known as the Taliban.
The U.S. had warned the Taliban if Afghanistan was taken by force, it would not be recognized internationally. Will Canada refuse to recognize a Taliban government?
Well, thank you, Katie, for the question. I would say to you, it's early days. Right now, we want to see what happens. The country has essentially surrendered to the Taliban. The Taliban is saying that it wants to run as a government, but we're going to wait and see. It's too early to answer that question.
You're waiting to see. Are you going to treat the Taliban with credibility?
Well, we have to see how they behave since they have taken over the country. Certainly, their behavior was totally unacceptable for the short time that they were in charge after the Russians left about 20 years ago. So we'll wait and see.
Oh, Sheila, am I hearing things? We're going to wait and see. It's too early to answer that question. We're going to see how they behave. Is this guy out of his mind? Is he still in space or something? Sheila, there's only one correct answer to that question. No, they're terrorists. Of course we're not going to recognize them. What is he thinking, Sheila? And by the way, in the hours since he made that statement, has he issued a retraction or a clarification? This is outrageous.
What an absolute disgrace. For context, for Mark Garneau, since he must forget, 40,000 Canadians served in Afghanistan. 158 of them died. Thousands were left psychologically and physically damaged because they served in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban. And what an absolute disgusting thing for Mark Garneau to say that we might recognize them as legitimate, which means that we deal with them the same way we deal with any other legitimate democratically elected government in the world. That's a slap in the face to 40,000 Canadian servicemen and women and their families who made the sacrifice to go over there in the interest of freedom.
And Sheila, that quote, we'll see how they behave. We know how they behave. We
know how they're currently behaving. They're killing people right now because they allied with us.
Yeah, they're stringing up people with nooses just for having a different political opinion. Others, for smaller transactions or perceived transactions, they're having their hands or their feet amputated. What does this guy think he's talking about? See how they behave? I'm surprised he didn't say something equally as stupid as, we'll see if they're going to adhere to COVID-19 protocols in terms of social distancing and masking. This is outrageous. You know, it's like saying, I've got a fishbowl full of piranhas. They haven't been fed for 3 days. Well, how do you think they're going to behave if I throw a slice of bacon in the aquarium? We know the answer to that question. We're not supposed to negotiate with terrorists, and these guys are amongst the most odious, egregious terrorists on the planet right now. And for him to say we're going to see how they believe, does he think there's going to be some reform movement in the Taliban ranks? I can't believe what I'm seeing here, Sheila.
We should give them some money for feminist programs. I cannot wait to see the sheer volume of money that we are going to give to the Taliban for aid work. The foreign aid money, I'm sure, is already being considered dished out to the Taliban government, and it will go to terrorist activities against our friends and allies, including our interpreters we left behind there. The Taliban shot little girls for trying to go to school.
Yeah.
What sort of come to Jesus moment does Mark Garneau think that they had since then?
You know, Sheila, here's the tragedy. For a very relatively small military force that was in place by the West, and by the way, the Afghans have been slaughtered in the tens of thousands fighting, even being denied from the administration their paycheck sometimes, ammunition, severe shortages there. So they have, pulled their weight. But what I'm getting at is that we had, and when I say we, the West, a very relatively small amount of military boots on the ground there, and it was working. And then we withdrew it, and it collapsed like a house of cards. This did not have to happen. That what we had in place was indeed working, Sheila.
Here's my concern. The Taliban at this point may be better equipped than the entire Canadian military. Given what the Americans left behind, the technology the Americans left behind, the technology the Americans had equipped the Afghan government and the military with, that is all now in Taliban hands. Think about that. Just think about that. Like when the Soviets equipped the Mujahideen and then spawned Osama bin Laden, we just have to wait a little bit because the Taliban is in control of American technology now. And think about what they can do with that when they have an entire country to stage their terror attacks from now.
That's an excellent point, Sheila, and a tragic one at that. Two more issues related to the Taliban. Well, this is interesting. A little video here. Trudeau saying that the Taliban needs to step up. Oh, my goodness. What does he mean by that? Mr. Producer is searching for it right now, Sheila. And while he's searching the other video, you must see, folks, the U.S. calls for an inclusive Taliban government. This is the most misogynistic organization in the world. Like you said, Sheila, little girls being shot for having the temerity to go to school. And the U.S. is calling for an inclusive Taliban government. Incredible. So let's see if we can get those two. We have that one. Let's throw to that right now, Sheila.
Additionally, the UN Security Council issued a joint press statement earlier today calling for a new government that is united, inclusive, and representative, including with the full and meaningful participation of women. The Council spoke with one voice to underscore that Afghanistan must abide by its international obligations, including to international humanitarian law, and ensure the safety and security of all Afghans and international citizens.
Oh, international law. Gee, do you think a terrorist organization might, Sheila, violate international law? I think that is the very being of a terrorist organization, to violate the law, international, municipal, regional, or national. And this business about being inclusive, do we have any estimates of, I don't know, how many people of the Afghanistan trans community is going to be part of this government? This is rubbish. I can't believe this guy can say this with a straight face.
The only point, I think, in all of their actions where the Taliban might achieve gender parity is in the number of men and women that they kill. I think that's where they might equal out. I'm old enough to remember the world looking on in horror, seeing those women forced into those blue burqas where you could only see their face or their eyes, and it was mesh, because even seeing their eyes was too much. Cloaked head to toe in those blue burqas against their will, and everybody looked on in horror, saying this is a human rights violation. And now we have people who claim to be credible in the American government saying, these guys, all we have to do is nudge them towards feminism. The people, again, who enslaved women, shot little girls for trying to go to school. The religious police are out in full force right now, enforcing the burqa, forcible conversions to radical Islam. That's what's happening right now. And we have these idiots, each one dumber than the next, wanting to sell their failure as some sort of gift of hope that the Taliban might change. That's why they're doing this. These people absolutely failed. The Taliban has taken over. And instead of admitting we failed, they're saying, no. They're changed. They're different. And that's why we're letting them do this.
Unbelievable. And folks, to Sheila's statement, one dumber than the next, let's go to that video of Prime Minister Trudeau.
And my follow-up, will you recognize the Taliban government, or like the U.S., will you refuse to recognize them? And will military and development aid be cut off because of what's happening in the country?
Right now, our expectation and demand of the Taliban is that they permit, first of all, an end of violence and hostilities, and restore order to those who want to, for those who want to leave Afghanistan. We need to see the Taliban step up and permit an evacuation of those who want to leave, and that is what we are expecting of them, and that, quite frankly, is part of the statement that Canada and many other countries released last night.
Stepping up, Sheila, stepping up in the framework of the Taliban is for the months and years ahead, now that they are so emboldened and there are growing numbers and there are people from all over the world with like-minded terrorism ideals coming to Afghanistan now to be part of the party. Stepping up for them means plotting future 9/11s, not about having an inclusive government. I mean, what is the Prime Minister thinking?
What's happening in Afghanistan right now is a propaganda victory, the likes of which the radical Islamists around the world could not have ever imagined. Yeah. Right now, they hold more territory than when the Afghanistan war first began, because the Northern Alliance does not exist anymore. They basically have control of the entire country. And Justin Trudeau has specifically not ruled out sending these people development aid. We know he doesn't have a problem sending development aid to terrorist-linked organizations. He returned funding to the refugee organizations that are linked to Hamas after Stephen Harper cut it off. So he doesn't have a problem. And I guarantee you, he's going to dish out money to these terrorists under the auspices of feminist human rights and developing feminism in Afghanistan, because obviously they need it. We're going to be sending the money for abortions that's going to end up in ammunition. That's what's going to happen here. And this idea that the Taliban should permit evacuations, even if the Taliban did, which they won't, because that's incredibly stupid. The Taliban never would do that. So what, we send them to the airport again? And the Canadians never show up to get them, right?
Unbelievable.
Oh, hi. That was a clip from our Rebel Daily live stream. It's hosted Monday, Wednesday, and Friday by the big boss man, Ezra Levant, and Tuesdays and Thursdays by me, Sheila Gunn Reid, and my good friend, David Menzies. On the live stream, we talk about the news of the day, we show some videos, and we interact with our viewers at home. We stream at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey.